السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه حمدا يليق بجلال وجهه وبعظيم سلطانه، وصلى الله على خير خلقه محمد الصادق الأمين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين، وعلى أصحابه الغر الميامين، ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اكتبنا منهم آمين. اللهم زدنا علما ولا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم افتح مسامع قلوبنا لذكرك. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق وخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He deserves, and we send peace and blessings on our beloved, the beloved of Allah, the best of His creation, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering blessed by Him, accepted by Him. May He grant us ikhlas, sincerity to make this for His pleasure. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the fact that we are covering the greatest ayah of the Quran in a new year, 1445, today being the 1st of Muharram, that may the barakah of Ayatul Kursi make our year and all the years that are ahead be full of blessings and of obedience. Allahumma adkhilhu alayna bil amni wa iman wa salamati wal ilmi wa ridwan min ar-Rahman. This is one of the du'as that we say for the beginning of the year. O Allah, let this year enter upon us bil amn, with peace, with iman, with faith, was salamati, with safety, wal Islam, that we are submissive to Allah, wa ridwan, and with the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, min ar-Rahman, that everything comes from ar-Rahman. Ameen. One day, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was with his companion Ubay ibn al-Ka'b, who is one of the experts of the Quran among the Sahaba. There are 4 or 5 of them that are known to be the experts of the Quran, and he is one of them. Now, take this scene. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is there, and this blessed companion is alone with him. Now, think of the moment being alone with Rasulullah. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to take every moment as a teaching moment. He wanted to leave the best he could with every one of his companions. So he said, Ubay ibn Ka'b's son was Munzir. He said, Ya Aba Munzir, O father of Munzir, Atadri ayyu ayatim min kitabillahi ma'ak a'adham. Do you know, O Abu Munzir, which of the verses of the book of Allah that you have with you is the greatest? A'adham, a'adhamul ayah. I'm going to stop here. How many of you know which is the greatest verse of the Quran? 1, 2. No other answers? Ayatul Kursi. Any other answers? Everybody's nodding their head. No other answer? Now we, compared to Ubay ibn Ka'b, how much do we know? None. 0. What was his response? Did he know the answer? Yes. What was his response? Allah and His Messenger know the best. I was waiting to hear at least one person say that, because it puts us in that state of humility. Ya Allah, I don't know anything. As opposed to, I already know this. Because sometimes we come to a gathering, oh, Ayatul Kursi, I already know it. Fatiha, I already know it. No, we don't know anything. I don't know anything. I'm talking about myself. Wallahi, we know nothing. So the adab of knowledge is to show our bankruptcy in front of Allah, because the true knowledge of Ayatul Kursi would be revealed to our hearts by Allah, and our hearts would be open to it if our hearts were not already full. If I think I already know everything about Ayatul Kursi, I know every hadith, I know every word, then Allah will not give any more. So he feels that his heart, his cup is already full, right? So every time we approach these, even when you know the answer, like when your teacher or our sheikh or somebody asks, first response should be, Allah and His Rasul know better. That was the response of Ubay ibn Ka'b. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked him the question again, which is the greatest ayah? He said, Allah and His Rasul know better, best. Finally, he understood after repeated questioning that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wanted an answer, and he said, Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi qayyum. To which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam responded by taking his blessed hand and he put it on his chest like this. And he said, when he put his hand on my chest, I felt this coolness penetrate my heart through to my chest. And he said, Wallahi liyahnika al-ilm Aba Munzir. You are to be congratulated for your knowledge, O Abu Munzir. In other words, in other translation would be, you and knowledge have companionship. In other words, he complimented him that yes, this is the right answer. And in one narration, he said, by the one in whose hand is my soul, this ayah, has a tongue and two lips. Now, what's a tongue and two lips? What do you do with a tongue and two lips? You talk, you declare. And this ayah glorifies the sovereign, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the foot of the throne. In other words, what is the throne is the arsh, and the footstool at the foot of the throne is the kursi. He said this ayah glorifies Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, has a tongue, is symbolic, has a tongue and lips. In other words, if you look at it, this ayah is full of the glory and praises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's another narration in which Abu Dharr radiyallahu anh, in a long narration which I'm not going to go through in the interest of time, he came to the masjid and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was sitting there, and he came and sat with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam asked, have you prayed? He said no. Then he asked him to pray, and after he finished all of this, Abu Dharr came and sat next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he started asking him questions about, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He asked about salah, he asked about fasting, and so on and so forth. And then he said, he asked him questions like when you were a prophet, and things like that. And then he said, O Messenger of Allah, what is the greatest thing that has been revealed to you? So he directly asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi qayyum. One day Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab went out to some people who had prepared a meal for him. So I assume this was the time of his khilafah. And then in this gathering he said, who among you can tell me which is the greatest ayah of the Quran? He asked the same question. And Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, who was there, who was another expert of the Quran, he said, you are asking one who knows. Means, he said, I know because the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the greatest ayah of the Quran is Allahu la ilaha illahu. Okay. In another narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, narrated by Abu Huraira radiallahu anh, he said that everything has a summit, everything has a peak, and the peak of the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. And he said it contains a verse which is the head of the Quran, the Ayatul Kursi. This is from Sunan At-Tirmidhi. So these are some narrations, and there are others that tell us about the greatness of this surah, of this ayah. Now, among the fadail, among the virtues and benefits of this surah is that once there was a lot of sadaqah that was given during the month of Ramadan, and it was in the Baytul Mal, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu that I want you to stay there, then make sure nobody steals from the sadaqah in the night. So Abu Huraira was there in the night, and then he was a little drowsy. He heard somebody there, and he found a man grabbing things from the sadaqah and taking it. He grabbed him, caught hold of him. He said, "What are you doing here? I'm going to take you to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, in other words, you are a thief, and if I take you there, you are going to be punished for theft of sadaqah." He said, "I am a poor man. I have a big family to support. I need just food. I'm a needy person." And he pleaded his case, and Abu Huraira, being gentle, he said, "Okay, but you promise never to come back." He said, I won't come back." So he let him go, and he left. So next morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting. Abu Huraira came to him, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him before he asked anything. He said, "Abu Huraira, what happened to your prisoner? What happened to the?" So he was surprised that how does Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He said, "Ya Rasulullah, he was a poor man and he had a big family, so I felt sorry for him. I let him go." So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "He is a liar. He is going to come back. He will come back." So now next night, Abu Huraira goes there, and he is very vigilant. And sure enough, the man comes back, and he's again stealing from there. And Abu Huraira catches him again. He said, "Now you told me you're not going to come back. I'm going to take you to Rasulullah. I'm not letting you go." And again he pleaded his case. He said, "Look, there are poor people, and I'm giving to them." And he again went on and on and on. And Abu Huraira let him go, soft-hearted. Next morning, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ya Abu Huraira, what happened to your prisoner?" He said, "Ya Rasulullah, he did come again. Now he has really promised me he's not going to come back, so I let him go." He said, "He's a liar, he will come back again." So third night, the same thing happened, and Abu Huraira caught him and said, "I am not going to let you because you are a liar. No matter what case you say, I am not letting you go." He said, "If you let me go, I will teach you something that is of lot of benefit for you." So now Abu Huraira was intrigued. He said, "What is this?" I said, "Well, let me hear what you're going to say." He said, "If you recite Ayatul Kursi, Allahu la ilaha illahu, in the night, every night, Allah will appoint a guard, an angel to guard over you, and no jinn, no shaitan can approach you till the morning." So he said, "This is great." So Abu Huraira let him go. So next morning, he comes back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, "Karguzari, what happened last night?" So he said, "Ya Rasulullah, he said he was going to give me a great gift, something that will be very beneficial. And so I let him go." He said, "What did he say?" He said, "If you recite Ayatul Kursi, every night Allah will appoint a guard for you and will protect you from shayateen until the morning." Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Sadaqaka wa huwa kadhub." He told you the truth, but he is a liar. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam acknowledged, confirmed the blessing of this, that this indeed is a surah, if recited at night, gives you protection from all shayateen. Then he said, "Ya Abu Huraira, do you know who that man was?" He said, "Ya Rasulullah, Allah and His Messenger know." He said, "That was shaitan who came." That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. So what's the lesson from the story? This is from Sahih Bukhari. What is the lesson from the story? Take home lesson.
Importance of Ayatul Kursi.
Importance of Ayatul Kursi.
Recite Ayatul Kursi in the night before going to bed and anytime when you have some.
It was part of it. Recite Ayatul Kursi in the night before going to bed. Little bit more beyond that.
Anytime when you need shelter from.
That also, but
Every prayer.
every night. Every night. Not that, okay, today we studied Ayatul Kursi, so I go home and recite it. Recite it every night. Do you want protection from shayateen every night? So the lesson of this is that we, starting tonight, the first of Muharram, starting the new year, with a new wird that every night before I fall asleep, I recite Ayatul Kursi. And so that shaitan doesn't prevent me from doing that, I won't lie down and recite it. I sit on the bed while I'm still awake and I recite it, then I lie down. Because frequently what will happen, I lie down and say, lie on my right side, Allahu la ilaha illahu. Asleep. So I'm just giving you a practical tip. Sit and recite it, then lie down and do the rest of your adhkar. Also, Ayatul Kursi, it is never recited in a house, but the shayateen leave. So many times, there are things that are going on that we don't know in our homes. There are many instances reported by, and I don't have the time to go over all of these, from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, where they experienced from among the jinns coming into their houses and eating from his dates. One day he caught someone taking from his dates. He said, I am taking from your dates because I know you are a generous man, so I wanted to give you the reward of sadaqah that I take from you. So finally he caught him, and it turned out to be again from among the jinns. And it is narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that in Surah Baqarah there is an ayah which is the best of all ayah. It is never recited in a house, but the shayateen and shaitan leave, and that is Ayatul Kursi. The next virtue of this is a narration from Asma bint Yazid ibn Sakan, who said, I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say about these two ayahs, which is Ayatul Kursi and the ayah of beginning of Ali Imran, which starts with Alif Lam Mim, Allahu la ilaha illahu al hayyul qayyum nazzal alayk. So he said, in these two ayats is the greatest name of Allah, Ismul A'zam. And in another narration, it is said that the greatest name of Allah is in Ayatul Kursi, it's said in Surah Baqarah, Ali Imran, and Surah Taha. And then one of our scholars explained that in Surah Baqarah it is Ayatul Kursi, in Surah Ali Imran it's the beginning Alif Lam Mim, Allahu la ilaha illahu al hayyul qayyum, and in Surah Taha it is وعنت الوجوه للحي القيوم وقد خاب من حمل ظلما. So what names came in that ayah? وعنت الوجوه للحي القيوم, الحي القيوم. In Surah Ali Imran, الحي القيوم. In Ayatul Kursi, الحي القيوم. Okay. What does it mean, Ismul A'zam? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has countless names, 99 of which are special, but there are many more. And the greatest name, which is called Ismul A'zam, has the significance that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever calls upon Allah with this name and asking for anything, it will be granted. So it's like a guarantee of your prayer being answered, of course, if you're asking for good things. So, if you take these three ayah, it is Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, one of these two names. If there were only two, Allah would be included in that, because the others start Surah Ayatul Kursi at Allahu la And Alif Lam Mim, Allahu la ilaha. But the ayah of Surah Taha does not have the name Allah in it. But anyway, these are the three candidates for those who always ask. There is Brother Tariq online who always asks this question because he's always wanting his du'as to be answered. He'll say, Hazrat, what is Allah's Ismul Azam? It's among these three. We won't narrow it down any more. It's easy enough to ask, Ya Allah, Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum, Ya Arhamar Rahimeen. Allah says, Allah has the best of names. Wad'uhu biha. Call Him by them. So when you make dua, ask Him by these names. So lesson from this hadith is what? When we make dua, add Ya Hayyu, Ya Qayyum. We are using His names, which are candidates for this. And another benefit of reciting Ayatul Kursi, it comes from Abu Umama that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Man qara'a Ayatul Kursi dubra kulli salatin. That whoever recites Ayatul Kursi after every fard salah, 5 times a day, not just one day, every day. Maktubatin lam yamna'hu min dukhul al-jannah illa al-maut. It has been written for him that he will enter Jannah, and the only thing that is holding him from entering Jannah is maut, because death hasn't come. Which means a person who makes this a habit and believes in it and does it sincerely, the moment death comes, this person enters Jannah. So what is the lesson from this?
After every prayer.
After every fard salah, no matter how much rush you are in, it takes 1 minute, sit, besides doing istighfar and all of those, Ayatul Kursi. So we have established that Ayatul Kursi is A'adhamu Ayah, the greatest of ayah of the book. Now, anybody has any reflection? Why is it? I'm sure you have read it and you have memorized it and all of that. Simply speaking, because the whole ayah, Ayatul Kursi, is dedicated to the description of Al-Azim, the greatest, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what can be greater than one that is dedicated completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How is it dedicated? In which, in this ayah, there are 5 of His names. What are those names? Allah, Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, Al-Ali, Al-Azim. 5 of His names are here. And in this, there are 12 of His attributes of what He does and what He doesn't are in here. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned in this one ayah 16 times, just in one ayah. 5 by proper names and 11 times by pronoun. Who or He, bihi, ilmuhu, the pronoun going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So just imagine in one ayah 16 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned. 5 of His proper names and the rest are His attributes. Therefore, it is almost, and this is not a scholarly thing, it's just a reflection that if the abd, if the slave could ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, tell me about you, I want to know you. It would be like Allah says, here, read this ayah and you will know me. If you truly understand this ayah, you will know me. And of course, it is the greatest ayah because of all the hadith which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us to confirm that. Does anybody know when this was revealed? Now it is ayah of Tawheed. Most of the ayahs of Tawheed are revealed in which period? Meccan period. Now this ayah is in which surah? Baqarah. When was Surah Baqarah revealed? Madani, in Medina. So Ayatul Kursi was revealed in Medina. That says, because it's ayah of Tawheed. La ilaha illallah. Now, everybody who's migrated from Makkah to Medina, leaving their families, leaving things, these are people of Tawheed. They accepted La ilaha illallah. They left Lat, Manat, Uzza, whatever, all those gods. These are people of Tawheed. They are in Medina. Then why is the greatest ayah of Tawheed being revealed in Medina. It's something to reflect on. What do you think? Yes. Because La ilaha illallah is a cleansing agent. It cleanses, removes shirk. So the major shirk had already been abandoned of idol worship, external forms. But there were still internal issues. And among Medina were people, as our sister reminds us, who are called munafiq, who just proclaimed that they were Muslims, but inside they were still in a state of shirk. They denied. And Allah knows that. So Allah is sending a reminder for them that Allah knows, come to Tawheed. And also for the benefit of the believers, because we constantly need, one of the names of the Quran is a-dhikr, reminder, because insan by nature is forgetful. We know theoretically Allah is one, but then we get impressed by this, by money, by power, by this person's achievement, by that, and so on and so forth, right? Constant reminder, Tawheed. And that's why the Sahaba sometimes, they used to meet each other, they said, let's go and sit together and renew our Iman. Did they need renewal of Iman? They thought so. And how did they do it? By talking about Allah of His Tawheed, which is like reciting these ayats. Now if they needed renewal of Iman in that environment, in Medina, what do you think of us living in this environment? How much reminder we need? Dr. Saad is smiling over there. How much reminder do we need? So, constantly. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Everybody can recite together. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. I'm sure the majority of you already know this, have memorized it. Those who haven't should make it mandatory on themselves that as soon as possible they do that, because otherwise you will be deprived of the greatest of Allah's ayah. So a quick translation of this, the ayah starts like Allah La ilaha illa huwa. There is no deity, there is no one worthy, and none has the right to be worshipped, illahu, but He. Al-Hayy, the ever-living, Al-Qayyum, the one who sustains everything, the all-sustaining. Neither drowsiness, nor slumber, nor sleep can overtake Him. Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. To Him alone belongs everything, whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. Man dha alladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih. Who is He that can possibly intercede with Him except with His permission? يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم. He knows what is ahead of them, between their hands, and what is behind them. What happens to them, what has happened to them, what will happen to them in the hereafter. And they will never encompass anything of His knowledge. They know nothing except that which He chooses and wills to reveal to them. His kursi, we'll talk about that. For now we'll call it His footstool, His kursi, extends over the heavens and the earth. And He feels no fatigue or tiredness in guarding, preserving, and sustaining it. And He is Al-Ali, the most exalted, the most high, Al-Azim, the great, magnificent, the tremendous. So this is in brief the meaning of this. And as we said, there are 16 mentions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 5 by His name and 11 by pronouns. Now, if you break this ayah down, there are 10 statements, 10 declarations, 10 announcements that Allah has made about Himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have started the surah by saying, La ilaha illahu. There is no God, or La ilaha illallah. There is no deity, no one worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But He doesn't do that. Allah starts the ayah by saying what? Allah. Do you feel it? How does it start? Allah. And if you truly feel Allah, everything else disappears. There is no existence, there is no creation, there is no being. Allah. So Allah puts His name above, that everything that follows depends on Allah. It's because of Allah, because of His will. So, a few reminders about the name Allah, that this is the unique name of Allah, one of the unique names of Allah. It is called Lafzul Jalala. Some people say it is derived like Al-Ilah. Some said no, it's an underived, and there's scholars have given different opinions on it. But by starting with, as I said, by Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala negates everything else, that nothing existed before Him. Okay? There is nothing after and beside Him. Therefore, Allah starts with that. And everything else owes its existence to Him. Everything starts with Him by His will, by His command of kun. Everything depends on Him for its sustenance, for being there. He is Al-Qayyum, He sustains everything. And it will remain in existence till He wills, and then it will end by His will. And therefore, it tells us that everything, if we look in the haqiqah, the reality, everything is meaningless and insignificant. Allah is the only true reality, because everything else didn't exist, came into existence, and one day will cease to exist. Therefore, the true reality is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This name Allah in the Quran appears 2,699 times, almost 2,700 times. And Ilah is 147 times. And Allahumma 5 times in the Quran. Allahumma, when we call it. Now, as we said, by this grammatical arrangement, putting Allah as what's called mubtada, starting of the sentence, also then takes this name and you can transpose it into every of the other 10 parts that comes. First one, Allah, who la ilaha illa huwa. Allahu al-hayyu al-qayyum. Allahu la ta'khuduhu sinatun. So you put Allah in front of every one of them. Okay, that's what it is. So this is one way of specifying. When you put it in front, it specifies that only Allah has what comes after it. He is the exclusive owner of that trait that comes. After that comes the khabar. Okay. Now the word ilah, Allahu, Allah, la ilaha illa huwa. There is no ilah except Him, pronoun huwa. That's for Allah. That huwa goes back to Allah. What is the meaning of ilah? Ilah is derived from the roots of alaha, yalahu, which means someone that is worshipped, an object of worship. So one translation is, there is no one worthy of worship. But there's another, that meaning of this is, who does not worship Allah has not experienced worship at all. Okay. It's just a name, worship. That only the worship of Allah is worship. Everything else is a joke, is a fake. And aliha, another root, is something in which you find peace and contentment and protection and safety. That there is no one in whom you can find peace, contentment, other than who? Allah. Another meaning is alaha, that root, which means to be in awe, in astonishment, to be astounded that you have the haiba of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, your heart trembles, as Allah says, by His mention, the hearts, wajilat qulubuhum, they shiver, and the hairs stand, just when you get, fear and awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some have said that the origin of the word, the three roots, is waliha, which means love. That means the object of desire and love. That there is no one that is worthy of being loved or sought for other than Allah. So these are all embedded in the word ilah. The word ilah has multiple facets, meaning the one who is the only one to be worshipped, the only one where you can find peace and contentment, the only one you would turn for in your desperate times, the only one who should be the object of your intense desire and seeking and love. So, it's not just there is no deity, no God as it's translated. It is much deeper than that. So this is something we should reflect on. Next, second portion, Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. Allahu Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum. So after negating everything else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala establishes, He says, you want to know who I am? I am Al-Hayy. What does Al-Hayy means? Al-Hayyu, this is an attribute of a living, an ever-living God. He's not absent. He is ever-living, eternal. Means no beginning, no end. Everything else that we know, the universe had a beginning and will have an end. Everything else besides Allah has a beginning and end. The Kursi had a beginning. The Arsh had a beginning. The Qalam had a beginning. The Lawh had a beginning. Allah created them. Okay. So Al-Hayy, He is without beginning or end, never subject to death because He is ever living. He is the eternal. Therefore, the only true living. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put al before it to specify it, that ever living is, al means the. He said the ever living, means the only one who is ever living. The only one who is perfect in his life and living. And why is that important? Because how can you worship something that doesn't have life? Right? A stone. It's a piece of stone. How do you worship that? A piece of wood. Anything else. Or how do you worship someone who you know is going to die? So Allah is establishing that you should have some standards of who you worship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Himself, the alive, the living, and also the source of life. That everything gets its life, comes into being and lives because of Al-Hayy. Al-Qayyum. Qa'im means to stand, who allows everything to be standing. Standing means to exist. Qayyum is the superlative. Sighatul Mubalagha. The superlative form of one who sustains, who makes people stand, people exist. So, Allah is the one who takes care of, He provides, He maintains everything that exists. So, what is my relationship with Him? I don't exist without Al-Qayyum. I don't come into being as a living being without Al-Hayy. My beginning belongs to Him. My existence belongs to Him. My death belongs to Him. Everything of mine belongs to Him. Even though I say, this is mine. This is my house. And we'll come to that soon. So, Al-Qayyum. Now, the closest thing to this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran uses the word Qawwamuna. الرجال قوامون على النساء. قوامون, those who sustain, protect. Men have been designated as those who protect and provide and sustain the women and their families. Okay, that's the closest we have. But Qayyum is a different structure because Allah cannot be compared to a man who sustains his family. Who can only sustain and provide and protect someone who's alive. Therefore, Hayy goes along with that. Someone who is always watching, because every moment we have a need for something, right? So Allah is not someone who just created and left things on autopilot. Allah is involved. And many times we think, 7 billion people, well, Allah doesn't know. I'm making dua, what's going on. Allah listens to everyone. There is no sensory overload with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 7 billion, 8 billion people calling, 5,000 different languages, different time zones, different this. Allah responds to each one. Because each of His names is at a divine dimension. So when we say He sustains, it is not comparable to a human being doing something. Some of the attributes of Allah, like Rahmah. We have Rahmah and Allah has Rahmah. Right? We protect and Allah protects. We have Sabr, Allah has Sabr. But only the names are the same because we are at a human level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is divine. Infinite and perfect in every attribute. So, is there anyone who is ever living or able to maintain all and every creation in the seen and unseen world, in the known and unknown, near, far, past, present, future? No, except Allah. So 2 attributes of Allah that describe all of those. And you can reflect on that. In the interest of time, we will continue. Next, the third portion is لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. Again, you can transpose the word Allah. Allah, لا تأخذه. Sina means drowsiness. Sometimes you're driving, momentarily you're not falling asleep, but you're unaware where you went. Or you're sitting with people and you go blank. Momentary lapse in your consciousness. And then there is higher level of sina, like, you're doing this when you're nodding off. And then there is, I'm seeing some sina around. And then there is sleep. So when a person is snoring, that is naum. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, neither drowsiness, approach him, they cannot grab him, they cannot take him, they cannot even come close to him. Neither drowsiness, no momentary lapse of awareness, nor sleep. And here he says sina in indefinite, nakira. He doesn't say as-sina, unknown, which means in any capacity, it's open. Even the slightest amount of drowsiness cannot come to him. Even the slightest amount of sleep cannot approach him. And there is a narration about Musa alayhi salam. That one time Musa alayhi salam said, Ya Allah, something to the effect, do you get drowsy or sleepy or something? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded by, he told him, O Musa, take 2 jars of glass and you stand like this and don't fall asleep. And Musa alayhi salam did that for a long time, and then there would be moments where sinna would overcome him, drowsiness, so he would do. Then he would wake up and be sure. And then ultimately, he got so drowsy that it dropped out of his hand and broke. He said, Ya Musa, if sinna or norm were to approach me, do you think this universe could continue? In other words, it cannot be. And this is different than the Judeo-Christian belief, because if you know what they said in Genesis, what does it say?
Rested.
Allah created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and then He rested. What does that imply? Fatigue. Sinna. Okay. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, neither sleep nor drowsiness. And the way it is, sinatun wala naum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't say wa naum, because you would say drowsiness and sleep do not approach him, in other words, together, but maybe individually they can say. Not sinna, wala naum, neither of them separately, individually, nor together. In other words, no possibility of anything like that. And here, again, we have to remember what happens even when we are driving and we know we have to be awake. When we're doing something important and we are nodding off, it tells us about our humanity. And then it makes us understand who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. And the next one, Lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. Again, you can transpose Allah. Lahu, to him. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started this again by putting himself first. To him. La, this is lam of tamlik, nam of ownership. That he is the malik. Allah, to him belong ma. Ma means anything that you can imagine, that you can't imagine, that exists, that you know of, that you don't know. In the seen world, unseen world, ma is open. Everything besides Allah. Whatever is, fis samawat, in the heavens. And how many heavens do we have? Samawat? 7 heavens. And we'll talk, if we have time, about the dimensions of those heavens. Lahu, to him alone, by putting himself first, he says, belongs everything in the heavens. Wama fil ard. And everything on earth. Now if you look at it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have said that everything in the heavens belongs to Allah, and that would be adequate. Why? Because the earth is a speck of dust in the first samawat, in the first heavens. All the planets and galaxies that we know, the zillions of galaxies and trillions and trillions and zillions of stars, and they're all in the first heaven. They're not even in the second or third. This is just first heaven. And in that universe, the size of the earth is less than a speck of sand in the beaches of all the world. So it would be sufficient. Yet Allah specifies, وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decorated this earth, honored it for His best creation, human beings. So He's reminding us that everything belongs to Him, and everything that you fight over, that you witness on your planet, on the home that I have given you, also belongs to Him. To Him alone. Every single thing that exists on the earth, that is what we call macroscopic, microscopic, atomic, subatomic, we used to go from neutrons to now we are neutrinos, and whatever is smaller than that, photons, everything from that level till the greatest, the biggest of Allah's creation is what? Quickly. What is the biggest of Allah's creation? Greatest, biggest.
The whale.
Allah's arsh. Because all of the universe that we know of, this is first heaven. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us from his journey that all that you know, this, and what is the size that we know? It's like 14.6 billion light years across. Known universe. If you take all the known universe, first heaven, compare it to the second heaven, he compared it, the size of this is like that of a halaq, a ring. Take a ring, like a wedding band, and you throw it in the middle of the Sahara Desert, open desert. How big is it in compared to the desert? This universe that is so huge is compared to the second heaven is that size. And he said the second heaven to the third is like a ring in the desert. And each one. And then he said all of those compared to the Kursi are like a ring thrown in an open desert. And he said the Kursi that we are talking about compared to the Arsh is like a ring thrown in an open desert. And above the Arsh is Rabbul Arshil Azim. So this gives you idea of perspective of size. So the greatest, the biggest of Allah's creation is the Arsh. So from the smallest particle to the largest, what is above, what is below, what is known, what is unknown, seen, unseen, what was, what is, what will be, everything belongs to Lahu, to Him alone. What does this part of the ayat teach you about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? About His grandeur, about His greatness. That now I know who I worship. Okay? Look at the expanse of everything, Allah. No matter what I can think of, what I can imagine, Allah is greater than that. And therefore, it should generate in me that awe, that haiba, that Allah. And this is a reminder. What should it generate in us? Humility. Allah is so great. I am a speck of dust, on a speck of dust, in a speck of dust, which is the universe. Then how can I have arrogance and kibr and Allah is this and I talk about Allah and I declare things and I accept and I don't accept. What kind of arrogance is that? So this, when we understand who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, should automatically make us feel humble in front of Him. Ya Allah, I'm nothing. Literally nothing. Because sometimes in our moments of intimacy, I think I'm doing good, I'm with Allah, I'm close to Allah, I think I'm something. We should always think that we are nothing in front of, and literally we are nothing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything He owns, lahu ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard, and as the Qayyum, He takes care of all of that exists. He's the one taking care of the COVID virus. He's the one who's taking care of you and me. Me and everything I call. This is my house. When I say that, I should remind myself, lahu ma fi samawati. When I say this is my son, lahu ma fi samawati. This is my body, lahu ma fi samawati. This is my heart. This is my life. I can do what belongs to Allah. Everything. This is my car. I need to remind myself when I make statements of my wife, my husband. We all belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all belong to Allah. My vision, I'm seeing, belongs to Allah. One moment He can take it away. Reminder again. And the next one. Man dhal ladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih. Allah, who, this is a question Allah says, who dare intercede or proceed with an intercession with Allah except by His will. So when you talk about power, somebody has the power to do something. King can give an order, or president can give an order, and people carry it out, and then the next, and the generals, and this and that. The least level of power is to say, can you please do this for so and so, like intercede. Like the mother intercedes for the child with the father. Oh, spare him this time. He won't do this again. That's the least level of power. Allah is saying, who do you think has even the least level of power to intercede for anyone in front of Allah? The answer to the question is, who has the power? No one. No one. Not even the Anbiya. Not even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Illa bi-idhni, except by His permission. And that permission that will be given for intercession on that day to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other Anbiya and to other people that Allah has told us about is only by His permission. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about His authority, and this part of the ayah obviously refers to the akhirah, because this intercession will be on the day of judgment. Okay. And even as we said, the prophetic intercession will be by Allah's permission. Allah just told us everything belongs to Him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell us that everything He already knows. Why does He need intercession? Intercession is usually that somebody comes and said, judge him differently because I'm bringing you new information. Maybe you'll change your mind. Everything is already known to Allah. So why is He giving somebody Allah can forgive? Why is He giving certain people and Anbiya the chance to intercede? Obviously He's already decided to free those people from the hellfire. This is just to honor the people, like Rasulullah. Okay? If you say I will do it, Allah is going to do it anyway, but honor them. Okay? Honor the Huffaz, honor the martyrs and so on and so forth. That to elevate the status, and this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is a long hadith about the intercession from Anas ibn Malik. If time permits in the end, we will go through it because I want to finish this. The next ayah, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم. You can again put Allah, يَعْلَمُ, He is the one who only knows. He alone knows fully. Ma, everything open. Baina aydihim literally means what is between their hands. Wama, and whatever is khalfahum, behind them. This is symbolic for what is in the future, what is in the past, what they have done and what is coming ahead for them. It is all known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fully He knows what is apparent, what is hidden, what we say, what we don't say internally, what is the state of our hearts, what happened in the past, present and future, and everything that is ahead, the future life, their future life, our future life in the dunya till our death, where our death will be, when it will be, how it will be, where we will be buried, where we'll be disintegrated, where the last portion will be from where we will be resurrected, where we'll be on the day of judgment, in which group we will be, and everything is known to Him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that, and about their past actions, of what they left behind, what they brought forward. In other words, this is the ultimate of Al-Alim, an all-encompassing knowledge of everything, of time, space, not just about us, about everything. The perfection of knowledge. So Allah is telling us about His knowledge. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again puts us, so we are in awe of that, then He reminds us about our knowledge. In the next He says, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. Allah, they cannot encompass, they don't have bishay, the slightest from min ilmihi, from His knowledge. They have nothing, they don't even have the slightest of His knowledge, illa, except bima sha'a, what He permits to be known. Everyone who knows anything, our knowing Allah, our knowing medicine, our knowing engineering, our knowing whatever it is, the universe, whatever we know, what the plant is like, what water will do, all of that, what we make is from knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted us. Allah says they cannot grasp, they cannot encircle, encompass. Yuhit, ahata means to surround like this. They cannot comprehend anything, bishay, the slightest amount, except what He chooses to be known. And Allah reminds us elsewhere in the Quran when He talks about when you are born from butune ummahatikum, when you come out from the wombs of your mother, you come out without knowing anything. And then Allah says, the words that are used is not that you came out knowing nothing. In other words, He says, and you know nothing, it means. Illa bimasha. So now you compare His knowledge from the last part of this ayah. who knows everything, and I know nothing. Allah has given me a little bit. Do you remember something like this when we were studying the meaning of this in the Surah Kahf? Anybody remember where this was? It was the encounter of Khidr alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. Where? People are not reviewing. When they got on the boat, what happened? That was after. There was a bird sitting there. What did the bird do? You forgot. Dipped its beak in the sea while they were on the boat. And Khidr alayhi salam told Musa that, "Oh Musa, your knowledge of the knowns and my knowledge of the unseen compared to the knowledge of Allah is less than what this bird took in its beak from the ocean." Anybody recall this or not? Yes? Nobody is saying. That means you don't review.
Unsafe.
Insan is nasiya, forgetful. So what should be done?
Remind.
Review. If you take notes, review. We've made videos available. When things become easily available, nobody avails. Easily available, no value, no one avails. If you were taking notes, now you're doing work, you would remember.
I take notes, but I forget the notes.
No, I'm not. Okay, inshallah. It's for your benefit. Also from Surah Kahf, if you remember, the three questions that they had asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of them was, what about the Yasalunaka anil Ruh? They ask you about Ruh. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about that? وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلٌ. You have not been given any knowledge except a little bit, which says the same thing, that you know nothing except a little bit what Allah has revealed to you. Again, all of this, the comparison to teach us to be humble in front of Him. Do you know anything? I know nothing. Allah and His Messenger know best. That's how we started, right? That's it. Humility. So that we recognize, we understand the lowliness of our haqiqah, of our reality. And the lowest of all being is a slave, an abd, right? In our human relationship, what is considered the lowest? A slave of someone. So if we truly consider ourselves a slave, an abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will know who our master is, who my Malik is, right? And that's the correct relationship. That's what we were created for, to recognize who Allah is and who I am. The next of those 10, وَسِعَ كُرْسِيَهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. وَسِعَ encompasses. Allah talked about He owns everything before, and now He's saying His kursi encompasses all as-samawat wal-ard. Again, all the heavens and the earth is specified. يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي السَّمَوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Again, وَسِعَ kursi. Just His kursi encompasses all of that. Everything that exists. And how is all of existence in front of the kursi? Like a ring in the open desert. So some have said that the word kursi may have a metaphoric meaning. Like this is Allah's authority, encompasses everything. But there are many texts from the hadith which suggest that kursi is a creation, not just a metaphor. It's how it is, only Allah knows. Where is it? We know it is at the foot of the arsh. And we know relative to the arsh, the kursi is very small. But relative to the rest of the universe, the kursi is huge. How huge? That everything is encompassed by it. It is a symbol of His authority and kingship. So the entire expanse of the universe and beyond, wasi'a, extending over all of that and holding within it is his kursi. The word kursi comes from kirs, which means something that brings things together. Also, one meaning is it's the foundation that everything is built based on the kursi. In the entire Quran, how many times does the word kursi come? Jazakillah. Once. In the whole Quran. How many times does the word Allah come?
2,299.
Wrong.
2700.
2,699.
690.
Okay. How many times does the word arsh come? Anybody know? 19 times. But kursi? Only once. And that's right here. This is just for your information. So again, by understanding this, how insignificant we are. The entire universe, in which we are like nothing in this universe. You can't even, the parts of the universe where you can't even see the earth. You can't even see our sun. And our sun can accommodate 1.2 million times the surface of our earth. And in the earth, how big am I? You can't even see this in certain parts. All of this, compared to the kursi, is so diminutive. So again, it teaches me how low am I, and yet I'm so insignificant, yet Al-Qayyum takes care of me. And I'm sitting here talking to you. What a being, what a being, what power. It's beyond our comprehension. How great is He? How generous is He that He is taking care of this few cells here that are clustered together as an identity of Ali Hazratji or any one of you. Allah above the arsh is taking care and sustaining me. Every need of mine, He knows every emotion. He said He's feeling, my abd is feeling down, let me bring this so that he feels better. My abd is hungry, let me provide this watermelon for him. My abd is hungry, he feels something salty, let me give him this samosa. From His arsh, the smallest of our needs He is taking care of. And how ungrateful am I? How many times I take His name in the day? How many times I say, Ya Allah, shukr to you. The ninth part, Wala ya'uduhu hifdhuhuma. After talking about the expanse of the heavens and the earth and everything in between, sustaining, He says, Allah, Wala ya'uduhu. He feels no tiredness, no fatigue. This is not a burden on Allah. Hifdhuhuma. Their protection, their preservation, provision, nothing. This ayah circles back to which part of this ayah? When He says, وَلَا يَؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُ. He feels no fatigue or no tiredness in guarding and protecting, sustaining all of this. Goes back to which? لَا تَأْخُذُهُ سِنَةٌ وَلَا نَوْمٌ. Again, feels nothing. حِفْظُهُمَا. Huma, both of them. Heavens and the earth. But it also says, if you take hifz, samawati wal ard, what came before was kursiyuhus, wasiya kursi. So it also means, can also mean that He also sustains the kursi and the arsh and everything under the arsh. But the common understanding is the heavens and the earth. And the last ayah, وَهُوَ الْعَلِيُّ الْعَظِيمُ. And He is Al-Ali, the exalted, the high, above anything, greater than anything you can imagine. High in His majesty, high in His being, high in His knowledge, high in, the extreme of everything. Al-Ali, elevated. Al-Azim, these are two names of His greatness. Uluwa means elevated, great, who, he can't get any higher because that's who he is. Azim. He's magnificent, he is tremendous, he is great. So again, after this whole description, we hear about these two attributes with which this ayah concludes, so that we may again feel humble and insignificant. And Allah is reminding us of His greatness, and He's also telling us, no matter how small you are, remember, I am here. I will take care of you. I will provide for you. Because Allah is high above His arsh, istawa ala al-arsh, whatever that means, ascended above His arsh. He is great in might and majesty, resplendent. And therefore, that brings us to what my relationship should be with my Rabb. Allah does, in that relationship, Allah does what He has assigned on Himself, what He has written for Himself. For Himself He wrote, Rahmah. I am going to be merciful. I am going to be forgiving. I am going to provide. Whatever Allah wrote for Himself as His responsibilities towards us, He fulfills to perfection, beyond perfection. The question is, in this relationship, in this equation, for which I was created, the responsibilities that were given to me, do I fulfill them? And which is ubudiyah. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. To worship Allah, first we need to recognize Him. This ayah teaches us to recognize Allah, who He is. And if we truly internalized and understood and reflected on this ayah, we would fall in sajda for our rest of our life. Ya Allah, I can't worship you. Even if I spend all my life only in sajda, focused and praising you. لا أحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. No matter how much I praise you, it is not. You can only be praised like you have praised yourself. Okay, this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam frequently recited in sajda. لا أحصي ثناء عليك. I cannot sing your praises. I cannot. Means whatever I do is inadequate for your majesty and your beauty. أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك. You are one who has praised himself, and that's the only adequate praise for you. So the lesson is for us to look and see, do we fulfill our part as His abd, what He desires from us, what He expects from us. And again, no matter how powerful and mighty you may think of yourself or I may think of myself, we are less than a speck of dust, as we said, in a speck of dust which is the universe. And He is high and mighty and untouchable. So have I understood who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? Have you understood who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the surah? The answer is no. We have touched on some of those things. We have touched on some of this. Inshallah, we hope we have touched on some of those things. And therefore, it calls for a sajda in front of her. It calls for obedience to His commands. This is what Allah says. Qala Allah. That's it. Samana wa atana. We hear and we obey. There shouldn't be any debate. There shouldn't be, I'm not ready for this. I will do this when this happens. You're making conditions with Allah. If we understood and we were in awe and reverence and love and obedience and worship of Allah, there would never be that debate. There would never be a competition of my nafs, of what I want and what Allah wants. So that, in brief, is Ayatul Kursi. We could spend a whole month about it and it would not be adequate. But hopefully this gives us some background on it, something to reflect on, and the assignment of what are we going to do with Ayatul Kursi now, starting tonight? Every night and after every prayer. At least. And reflect on it. So we have come into Maghrib, so I'm not going to talk about this hadith of intercession, the shafa' that Allah grants people and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because it's a long hadith, and we're going to end here because we've got only a couple of minutes before Maghrib, and inshallah we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us internalize the greatness of His Majesty and the greatness of this ayah, and at least to give it its right to some degree by understanding it, by internalizing it, by being in awe, by being obedient to Him, and by frequently reciting and learning if we haven't. Not only memorizing, but learning the meaning of each of those words. So when we then say it, it has a different meaning and significance. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.